This is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. I'm going to briefly talk about a book here by David Horowitz, Dark Agenda, The War to Destroy Christian America. Highly recommend this book. I haven't read it yet, but I am about, this coming Friday, going to be one of two people interviewing Mr. Horowitz. He's going to do a call-in interview. The other host, really the main host, would be Dr. Frank Simon, a very prominent conservative activist and thinker here in Louisville, Kentucky. I always look forward to the opportunity to work with Dr. Simon. He's absolutely amazing. Dr. Simon in the past has done a review of David Horowitz's book, Big Agenda. So you can contact Dr. Simon, his office, get a copy of that, and I highly recommend that. And I highly recommend anything that David Horowitz writes, and particularly this book, Dark Agenda, The War to Destroy Christian America. And I want to briefly recount a story to you, for some of you guys. At the University of Louisville not too long ago, fifth-year engineering student at the University of Louisville distributed some gospel literature to a particular classroom. His classroom on LGBTQ history or something. The students and the professor at this class, I don't want to say they flipped out, but I heard about it from a U of L professor, and he kept saying, dangerous, danger, in reference to this literature. So I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, did this student threaten these people? Did he threaten these people? Then here's my second thought. This professor is a leftist. He described himself as a revolutionary, left revolutionary, something of that nature. Typical Marxist jibberjash. And one thing I've always learned about leftist, socialist, communist, cultural Marxists in the United States is that they aren't too keen on truth. And quick examples of that, Juana Brawley, Al Sharpton, Jesse Smollett, the lacrosse players who were falsely accused of rape, these white, privileged males who raped this black female victim. Come find out that was a total lie. Covington students, how they were accused of white, privileged males who were wearing MAGA hats, were attacking in this horribly racist manner these innocent Native Americans. And that turned out to be total falsehood. So I know from personal experience, when you have a leftist cry, danger, like that robot in Lost in Space, you need to question it. So I did my investigation, and I actually found the pamphlet. Got an example of a copy of the pamphlet. It's called God and Sexuality by Ray Comfort. God and Sexuality by Ray Comfort, Rayconfort. And I've been reading it. Here's all I'm going to say. Buy that pamphlet. Read it for yourself. And then you ask yourself, how can anybody interpret this as dangerous? Let me tell you, that professor at the University of Louisville didn't say it once, he didn't say it twice, but repeatedly. And these LGBTQ students, they said, we feel threatened. We don't feel safe. I contacted the campus police. Well, I contacted them, also read some articles. And the campus police said they did an investigation. They said the student didn't violate any campus policy. He made no threats. They checked in his background. No problem, no issue. So what's the issue here? What's the real issue here? I bet you if you read that book, Dark Agenda, The War to Destroy Christian America by David Horowitz, you'll start to understand what was really happening there at the University of Louisville. But I want to compliment the University of Louisville president because she handled it quite well. It's obvious that she was not going to allow anyone's right to free speech to be suppressed. And so I'd like to compliment her on that. That's about it. This is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. And remember, we must read.
Hello, this is Frank Simon. We're here with Corbin Seavers, and our special call-in guest is David Horowitz on the line. Is that right, David?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm so glad that you called in. We want to see what you have to say about what's going on or just in general.
Mr. Horowitz, can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Hold on, Mr. Horowitz. I have a little challenge here. Could you go ahead and speak again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I barely got you there. Great. Yes, thank you so much for this call in. We deeply appreciate it. One of the main things we obviously wanted to talk about is your book, Dark Agenda, The War to Destroy Christian America. I know we don't have much time, and Dr. Simon also wanted to touch on some other subjects, but could you give us like a short synopsis of your book, Dark Agenda?
Sure. You may have noticed our country is under siege from an enemy within. The Democratic Party has declared war on a legitimately elected president and administration. It doesn't respect any limits, lying and slander to attack this government and attempt to cripple it. We're surrounded in the world enemies like China, Iran, and Russia. And the assault on religion and the religious foundations of America is part of the assault on America itself. My book, Dark Agenda, points out that 98% of the people who settled North America and created the United States of America were Protestant Christians. 98%. Every freedom and value that we cherish, equality, liberty, inclusion, tolerance, originated as a Protestant Christian idea. This country could only have been founded by Protestant Christians before the Protestant Reformation. By the way, I'm saying this, I am an agnostic Jew. I'm not defending as though, I'm not a Protestant Christian defending his cause. This is an objective view of what happened. Before the Protestant Reformation, if you were a Christian, you could only get into heaven by going through the Catholic Church and its priesthood. But the Protestant reformers recognized that churches are human institutions. They're not divine institutions. Anybody who doubts that the Catholic Church during the Reformation was a very corrupt institution should watch the Borgias, who were popes, on Netflix. And they came up with this revolutionary idea, which they called the priesthood of all believers. That is, that every human being created by God has a one-on-one relationship with their Creator that doesn't have to be mediated through a priesthood, whether it's the Catholic priesthood or some Protestant ministry. There's no Orthodox Christian church, that there's no orthodoxy invested in human institutions. Well, if you think about it for a second, priesthood of all believers, of course, includes black slaves. It's the most radical idea of equality. Democrats started making everything about race, class, and gender, but it is the foundation of our country. And my book, Dark Agenda, describes how the left uses the Supreme Court has driven America away from its Christian roots.
I would say, based on what you said, if we are being encouraged to go further away from our Christian roots.
Can't talk about Christian origins of this country in school. The Democrats now who run the House of Representatives, they don't swear witnesses in by saying, "So help me God." And they forbid it, actually. It's a war.
It's a war against our Christian roots. And it's in our Christian roots that many of our freedoms, that's where they come from.
All of them. All America's freedoms have their basis in Christianity. And this doctrine that I mentioned of the priesthood of all believers. So school children no longer can know what the basis of their freedoms are. Why are we against one-party states? Precisely because the Christian perception is a Judeo-Christian. This country's history, it's Christian, is that we're flawed as human beings, that the root cause of social problems are not races, like white skin privilege. That's not the problem. The problem, or patriarchies. The problem is us. The problem is that we're sinful. Of course, what the left, the Democratic Party, wants to do is to get more and more power into the people who control the government. They want to control the government and get it more and more power. So what they're doing is they're empowering people who are corrupt because they're human beings. They lie, they cheat, they steal. Joe Biden has a whole family of crooks, for example. I don't think that Republicans are innocent of these human weaknesses. And that's why limited government is important.
It seems like you're bringing up
the majority is important.
One thing you're bringing up that seems as important is how each side has a different view of human nature. As you
Correct.
say, the biblical...
That's what creates left and right. People on the right know that the problem is human nature. The biggest problem is civilizing human beings. The left thinks that human beings are just fine. It's society that's bad. What is society except us? Very simple when you think about it. Unfortunately, there are millions upon millions of deluded people who will vote for Bernie Sanders, a communist, or Joe Biden, a fool who will say anything to get a vote.
You characterize Bernie Sanders as a communist. He would call himself a democratic socialist. Do you see much difference between the two?
Wait a second. He spent his entire life supporting communist dictators. He had his honeymoon in the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War. He loved Fidel Castro. He's defended Maduro in Venezuela, supported the communists during the Vietnam War. Bernie Sanders is not a member of the Communist Party, but their ideas are his ideas. He's so filled with hate against people who succeeded, the so-called billionaires. I think they stole $1 billion.
I don't know if you can connect this to the Protestant work ethic, but it does seem like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and others within the top notch of the Democratic Party were attacking people, financially successful people. You're financially successful. It seems like they're giving the idea that you're corrupt, you're bad, you're evil.
Not any clue as to how the economy works, because they're so filled with hate against capitalism. They're all Marxists.
This is Cindy Marlow here. Nice to meet you. I'm with Dr. Simon here. Corbin, when I look at all that's going on and how socialism and communism and the people that approve of the ideology, it seems like to me they base their security they want to give the people on their weakness because man has fears. The weakness of man's fears, they play on that to say, hey, we're going to give you this, 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 and that, when in the long run it stops ingenuity, where people will begin to start thinking for themselves, creating new businesses, actually stamps out man's humanity initiative.
They stoke is envy and resentment. Who cares if Bill Gates made $100 billion?
Exactly.
And hundreds of thousands. He changed the world.
Of job.
There's no skin off my back. Reminds me of a joke when I was a kid. A little guy says to a big guy, why aren't you heavyweight champion of the world? And the big guy says to him, well, why aren't you lightweight champion? It's crazy. And it's not like billionaires put their money in a mattress. They spend it and invest it. And that gives other people income. They don't hoard the money. Maybe there's some who do.
Mr. Horowitz, I know a little bit about your background. At one time, were you what you might call a Marxist or a socialist?
Yeah,
so,
I was raised by card-carrying communists. My parents were card-carrying communists. They wanted the Russians to win the Cold War. They were nice people, except if you crossed them politically, and they weren't so nice. But I think that's true of most people on the left.
And at one point, you were sort of active in what we would characterize as the New Left movement, Black Panther.
Yes, I was one of the creators of it. I edited the largest magazine of the left and one of the first magazines of the New Left. And I raised a lot of money for the Black Panther Party. I was deluded by what we said. We're talking about racism, government is racist. It was ridiculous.
I've read many of your books, the small ones. I'm very honored to have you on the program with us. You've been a great inspiration to many, many people.
Christians have been the bulwark protecting this country, and they're responsible for electing Ronald Reagan and then Donald Trump. Christians have to, it's got to be onward Christian soldiers.
Well, can I ask you another question? What do you think about this coronavirus epidemic that's all over the news?
Oh, this is a perfect case. Some Democrats have surprised me by recognizing that this virus is a common enemy, and we have one commander-in-chief, and sabotaging Trump is just aiding the virus enemy. Most Democrats, however, have long lost the loyalty to this country.
Yes.
And the patriotic feeling defending it. So they will say anything about Trump that pops into their heads as long as it's nasty and destructive. But I have to give credit to Cuomo. Never thought I'd say this. And Jay Inslee, who said terrible things about Trump. And even Gavin Newsom, but who recognized that he's doing everything he can. And his hands are always tied by these Democrats. Nancy Pelosi, into this bill about the virus, put $1 billion to finance abortions. And I had to take it out. Now, the great thing about Trump is he fights back. They got him, and he's inspired some Republicans to fight back.
Yes,
and
I've noticed that too.
Had
Yes,
to pull that from the bill.
I agree with you. I think the one thing that draws a lot of people.
Did you ever think that you would live to see a day when the Democratic Party supports killing infants that are already born?
No, infanticide.
No. They're as ruthless as communists. They think that way. It's just terrible.
Mr. Horowitz, where can we purchase your book, Dark Agenda? Where are some places we can purchase them?
Well, Dark Agenda is available on Amazon. Easy to get on Amazon. Go to my website, frontpagemagazine.com. Probably see an ad for it.
Okay,
frontpagemag, M-A-G.com.
Okay, frontpagemag.com. Okay, and that's where people can get more information about you, about your books. Do you do speaking engagements, sir?
I do, but not in this environment. The virus out there. I'm in the vulnerable class.
Oh, okay, I understand. Now, I know before the coronavirus so popular, you used to do a lot of campus visits. How would you characterize your reception from college students?
Isn't worth it to me to go to a campus. And for 20 years, I haven't been able to go to a campus without bodyguards. The people who run the universities, they're terrible people. So I went to Dartmouth where they pay $60,000 a year tuition. Before I got there, they had brought Linda Sarsour, who's a terrorist and a Jew hater and a Christian hater too, for that matter. They gave her $10,000 to speak there. They didn't give me a penny.
Who was that, sir, that you said?
Linda Sarsour. She's the so-called Women's March. She's a Palestinian. One thing you have to know about the Palestinians is that 100% of them vote for terror. They've conducted a 70-year war of aggression against Israel. They have no rights. When the Germans invaded Europe through Poland twice in a century, when they lost the Second World War, the Allies took the whole of East Prussia, which was the industrial heartland of Germany, and gave it to the Poles and expelled 12 million Germans who had lived there for 1,000 years. That's justice under international law. And these Palestinians, I could go on and on, but they're terrible, terrible people. The whole people is morally corrupt. You assume they've been oppressed, which they haven't. Palestinians or Israeli citizens, 1 million or more of them, have more rights as Israelis than they do in any Muslim country or Arab country.
But going back to the situation with campuses.
Yeah, okay, so they gave Linda Sarsour $10,000. When I got there, professors were calling me names, lying about what I've written, and saying, don't go to listen to this guy. The left showed up. The person who introduced me, they were handing out a leaflet from the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is just a big hate machine. It's attacked, I don't know, something like 60 religious organizations that disagree with their political agendas, call them hate groups. It's a fountain of hate. It's featured me for a decade. So they distributed these lies about me. The person who introduced me spread the lies, even though I warned them before and showed them why they were lies. They say I'm anti-black. I've written 3 books about race, all of them based on Martin Luther King's vision that we should judge people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. They call me the godfather of the anti-Muslim movement in America. I'm on record, I'm on the internet, I'm in books saying the majority of Muslims are law-abiding people who want to put food on the table for their kids. Unfortunately, according to every survey, there's between 400 million and 700 million Muslims who think that Osama bin Laden is a cat's meow and support the holy war against the West. It's got a lot of problems. That's not being anti-Muslim. So the students and the leftists, they open their computers, put on porn movies while I'm talking, turning up the sound really loud. Lesbians got up on chairs and tongue-kissed each other. Other leftists would get up and make a little speech attacking me and march out. And the vice president in charge of student affairs is supposed to keep a civil order at a university, so intellectual exchange of ideas. He thought this was all very funny. I would never go to Dartmouth again.
Mr. Horowitz,
I just want to. Universities are gone.
I just want to throw this comment out there. What you said.
What's the university in Lexington? University, is that? I think it's Lexington University.
University of Kentucky.
University of Kentucky, okay. I can't remember this guy's name, but there was a doctor who was the head of the whole division of medical sciences there. Had been for 15 years the head of the school. He gave a speech at the Heritage Foundation in which he said, well, he disapproved of these sex change operations for kids. Said they have to cope with gender dysphoria and so forth. You can't change biological facts. That's what he said. Okay, so they removed him. Leftist professors protested this. They removed him as the chief of the medical division. They cut his salary. They reduced him to a junior professor. And then they fired him. The Democratic Party then, the first bill that they passed in 2018 under Pelosi's speakership was a bill that would outlaw, it's called the Equality Act. It would make it criminal to have an opinion that these sex change operations aren't so good.
That didn't pass, though.
No, it didn't pass because Republicans control the Senate. But that's the mentality we're up against.
And I think it needs to be thrown out there about this whole situation on college campuses, about freedom of speech and the free exchange of ideas.
There's no freedom of speech, as you can tell. I mean, I couldn't be hired, or somebody with my views could not be hired at Dartmouth or any university. But I can't even visit and share politics. They don't even want their college students to be exposed to my ideas. They're totalitarian. Yes. They're fascist. That's the mentality. And the university administrators, to a man and woman practically, are culprits. They collude in this. After they leave the college, they go to high positions in the Democratic Party.
Dr. Simon?
Well, the other thing, Mr. Horowitz, is that the taxpayers, you and I, are putting a lot of money into these colleges. Is that not true?
I don't. But yeah, the government does.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the government to sue the Claremont colleges, which are elite liberal arts schools.
Yeah.
Because like every premier university in America, they support a terrorist organization called Students for Justice in Palestine. That's anti-American, it's pro-terrorist, and it just spreads genocidal lies about the Jews in Israel. Under Title VI, they should be deprived of federal funds. I don't know if I can convince the Department of Education even to sue them. The big problem in this country is that conservative people, patriots, don't fight. They get walked all over. But I think that's changing. I think those Trump rallies are changing things.
Mr. Horowitz, this is Cindy here again. The public education is public education. University of Kentucky, U of L here in Louisville. We even were trying to propose a bill with a particular state legislator, but they said it would be too intense, or we're kind of scared because we were saying we should have equal amount of professors being conservative and the others liberal, but they're afraid.
Oh, yeah, that would never wash. You can't hire professors on the basis of their politics.
Well, they're being hired now, I would
You should
say.
make a bill that requires them to assign make conservative books required readings.
Yeah, that would be good.
That you could do, because it's worse in the K-12, big child abuse, just worse and worse.
Where are some of the college campuses where you felt a little bit more welcoming to hearing your point of view?
Kenyon, but I haven't been there in 10 or 15 years. Kenyon College in Ohio, small elite liberal arts school. It was pretty good. And Reed College, which is a very left-wing school, but neither of these schools had women's studies department, which is a big part of the problem. They have all these Marxist classes that women's studies, black studies, which is racism, Chicano studies. It's just terrible. They've totally destroyed the curriculum. I've written 5 books about universities and documented everything that I'm saying.
If we're paying for these professors to teach against everything we stand for, but yet it's okay for them to teach what they believe in, to me, that is our taxpayers being used for more than
discrimination.
If you wanted to have the Democratic Party, could have sunk so low as it has, because it wasn't always like this.
Yes, exactly. Right there.
Right.
It's the schools.
Well, we just need to stop funding is the way I look at it.
Conservatives should be for voucherizing education.
Yes.
From kindergarten through graduate school.
Yes.
They should give no money to institutions, no federal monies to institutions.
Amen.
No federal monies to school systems. It all should go through the parents. Then the parents can form their own schools, depending on how severe or how bad the college is. They could take their money away.
Mr. Horowitz, you had mentioned some changes that you've seen in the Democratic.
I've got another appointment, so
we certainly appreciate you.
I have a website, but if you're interested in the schools, these kids are already brainwashed by the time they get to college.
Yes.
We have a website called Stop K-12, no hyphen, just K-12 indoctrination.org. Full of horror stories, but it also has a code of ethics for K-12 teachers, which if a superintendent of schools would make that part of the law governing teachers, that would stop them from indoctrinating. Just saying the teacher can't advocate on either side of a controversial issue.
And give us that website again, Mr. Horowitz.
Stop K-12 indoctrination.org.
Thank you very much for being on the program with us, and it's certainly an honor to have you. We hope to have you again sometime.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. We're fortunate we were able to have him at all. But I got an email about this coronavirus. It recommended we go to coronavirus.gov for more information. Well, I did a search on Google. I couldn't even find coronavirus.gov. It was all left-wing governors saying, oh, the world's coming to an end. The world's coming to an end.
That's why you don't use Google. You just shouldn't use Google. You should use DuckDuckGo.
Well, do you think they're different?
Yes. I've told you that a million times. Google is communism wrapped up in the internet.
Well, it's really amazing how this viral problem is becoming a political issue.
They've closed the NBA, the NCAA. I know Zach and I talked, we all discussed earlier, they're trying to keep the amount viruses going up. But during Obama's administration in 2009 and 10, with the swine flu, he didn't even declare America the state of emergency until after 1,000 deaths. And we actually had, I believe, 60 million cases of swine flu, almost 13,000 of U.S. deaths, according to the CDC during that time. So, and if we start using this as a weapon to close everything down, well, the left is going to win a lot and taking our society to a communist society. Because this is what Rush Limbaugh said, this is what Green Deal looks like, closing everything down, stopping everything because of the flu. And that's exactly what it looks like.
We're running out of time. We'll thank Corbin Seavers.
Yes, for getting our Horowitz on here.
Yeah, that was great. Cindy Marlow. And tune in again next week for the rest of the news.